Okay. Hey everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of my True Talks podcast. This is just a reminder or me telling you if you're new here. The recording on the screen is in fact my own gameplay, but it's also not required to understand what I'm talking about. The two have no correlation whatsoever, so if you want to just turn this on to listen to it, you aren't ever going to have to pay attention to anything that's going on the screen. It's just there for people who maybe want a visual aid or something to watch while they listen. Also, a reminder, this series is going to be kept around a PG-13-ish rating is what I'm calling it. Maybe it's lame that I have to put a disclaimer out there, but me being a teacher, I feel that it's important to make that known for maybe a younger audience that this is in fact going to hover around PG-13, low end PG-13, but yeah, whatever. So today, to give a summary of what we're going to be talking about, my current event, I have been moving out of my apartment lately. I'll be talking about that, and just kind of been hanging out at my parents' doing pretty much nothing. But well, I'll talk a little bit about that. The main topics that we have today, the first topic I'll be talking about is Challengers, the board game. It's a new board game that I actually learned through Board Game Arena, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. I have a bit to say about it, but I haven't really invested too much into it yet. The second topic I'll be talking about is describing what it's like to learn multiple instruments as someone who can pretty much play anything. Kind of talking about that. I did make a video a while back that was not very well watched on like learning secondary instruments and how to do it, but I'll be going a little more in depth and rambling about that here. The special segment in the middle is just going to be me discussing the whole online board gaming versus in-person board gaming thing and my 2 cents on it as someone who's pretty casual in the hobby at this point in time. Just kind of going over my thoughts on that because I know it's kind of a bit not necessarily controversial, but it's a topic that's well discussed in the community. And the final topic I'll be going over is I'm going to be ranking the Pikmin games decently in depth, and this, mind you, is prior to me finishing Pikmin 4. I am almost done with it. I think it was 38% done with the final area, so I have a pretty strong opinion on it, but it could be changed. It's subject to change with me finishing the final area, which I actually might do later today. Okay, so current event, I just moved out of my apartment completely today, and it's honestly a little like I have like memories that I've made through like all of college, and it feels almost like I'm locking them away. Like I'm a pretty sentimental person, like I don't talk about it a lot, but like it feels like totally moving on out of that life and into a new chapter, and it's really almost nostalgic to see my room the way that it was when I left it. Like to see it completely empty and devoid of stuff, especially since I've been making a lot more memories in there lately, like spending a lot of time with my girlfriend in my apartment, in my room, and that sort of thing. Seeing it just totally empty now, it makes me kind of sad almost. But hey, I'm also glad that it's done because I absolutely despise moving. Moving is one of my least, like, I was dreading this day. Luckily, it took less than an hour because I was pretty good at cleaning all my stuff out and making sure everything was ready to go. It was just a couple boxes of board games and like a dresser and desk left in my room that we had to move today. Again, as per usual, there's going to be silence a few times because I have a bottle of water here to take sips out of every once in a while. But yeah, I really despise the whole moving process, and I'm even more dreading like moving up north because I haven't done that yet. I'm doing that I think in no, it's not. It is 3 weeks. Yikes. It's 3 weeks from tomorrow that I am going, or 3 weeks from today actually, that I'm going to be moving all my crap up north with me, which, again, I hate moving, and the fact that I have to move everything that I own at once, I am dreading it. But when it's done, I will feel so incredibly relieved. Then I can finally focus entirely on preparing for teaching. I've already done a little bit of that. I've been writing another arrangement that I'm hoping that our jazz band will be able to do. At this point, I don't know what the skill level of our jazz band is. I haven't heard them play whatsoever. I just know that they have one. And my plan is to make the final concert like time themed. So that's also why I mentioned I wrote a Chrono Trigger massive medley, and I showed like bits and pieces of it earlier. I am writing that was written for that concert as well, for the concert band. And for the jazz band, I'm writing an arrangement right now of Corridors of Time that I'm hoping to get done in time for it to be performed. I have plenty. I have to stop saying time, but I have plenty of time to do it. It's just I have to get it done for sure, probably by January, I would say, is my deadline, because I know I'm going to get swamped with stuff that I'm not going to be able to focus a lot on my writing. That's why I'm trying to get it all done in advance. I want to do Corridors of Time and Planes of Time from Chrono Cross. I want to do both of those with the jazz band, and I haven't even started on the Planes of Time one. That one I think is actually going to be harder. I'm also preparing another random thought. I'm preparing for this party, if you want to call it that I'm having tomorrow. That's like a going away party for me. It's going to mainly be family that's coming, but I invited a few friends. I don't know if they'll be able to come. I know my best college friend is going to be able to come. Patrick, he's going to be able to, he's been on stream a few times. He's the one who always asks for what my beverage is. He's going to be coming, but a little bit later. Like, the party's ending at 5, and he gets off work at 4, I think, and it's a 30-minute drive, so yikes. We're going to have to save a little food and leave it out for him. But he's coming. I'm performing, like, 2 hours of music as well. I might stream it. I don't know. We'll see. What else? Oh, I also invited a few teacher friends that I have from student teaching. They might come, but I also mentioned to them I understand if they don't, because it's like they will know literally no one there, so it might be a little awkward, especially if only one of them comes or something like that. We'll see if they make an appearance, especially since it's a 45-minute drive one way for them. So it's like, I would get if you don't want to drive down, say hi, take a couple bites of food, and then leave. Like, I could understand that as well. It would be cool if they did, but I'm not going to be bent out of shape if they don't. But yeah, I'm super excited mainly about the performing music part, because it's been a while since I've sang in front of people, and that's like a major performance. I sang at an outdoor church service at the fair a while back. I might have mentioned that on one of these episodes a while ago, but I sang Bridge Over Troubled Water in front of a good amount of people at the outdoor church service at our county fair. But that was a pretty low-key performance. Well, this will be too, but it's more long, like it's a longer performance, and I honestly don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through without my voice getting super tired. I can barely do it, like, when I've been practicing, so it's like I have to be in the zone that day in order to actually make it. My voice gets super tired by the end of it, because I picked probably songs that are way too high for me, which is a tendency that I end up doing, but I'm excited. Peaches from the Mario movie might be making an appearance. I'm also making a buffalo chicken dip. I don't know if I've mentioned this on stream before or not, but I am actually super big into cooking. Maybe I don't seem the type, but it gives me so much satisfaction to, like, create something and then be able to fully enjoy it. Like, it's kind of the same way with music, where when I write a piece, I can just sit back, relax, and listen to it and be proud of it. Visual art, I'm bad at, and also I don't get that satisfaction because I'm not very good at it, and I can't sit and admire it because it's not good. But cooking, I really enjoy, like, cooking for other people too, but I always have to be the first one to taste it to make sure it's actually good. I made this buffalo chicken dip once before, but I'm using a slightly different recipe this time. It should still be good. I'm using the Buffalo Wild Wings buffalo sauce, so you can't go wrong with that. But I suppose I should get into the first main topic of today, which is Challengers, the board game. It's a card game, for those of you who don't know, that's almost like War, I would describe it. It's like War with extra rules, where you go it's up to 8 players play, and you play in sort of a tournament style, where it's like you're trying to earn fans, and you earn fans by winning. Like there are some cards that win you just extra fans, but the main way to win fans is by winning like each battle of the tournament, and there's 7 rounds. And the way it works is in between every round you draft cards, and there's like 3 different selections of cards. The basic A cards, B cards, and the strongest being C cards, which you open up more as you progress through the game. And there's some like in between rounds where I don't remember exactly what round it is, like just say like round 3, you can either take 2 more A cards or 1 B card. So you can either get one card that's like vastly superior, or you can have the chance to draw more but lower level cards. And the way it works is you pretty much only want 6 unique card types. I think the way it works is cards have 4. There are 4 different versions of every card, or like say there's like 4 necromancer cards. I think it's that. And then there are rare cards that specifically say there's only 3 of these in the deck, or there's only 2 of them. Or more common cards, like say Skeleton has 8 copies in the deck. And if you match them up, that's really, like, it ends up being really strong, because then you can hold more cards. Because you can only, there's not a specific rule that says you can't have more than 6 unique sets. But when you go into battle, the way it works is you lay down your card, the next person lays down cards until they either match or exceed the amount. Like there's numbers on every card until they either match the number that's on that card or exceed it. And then the card that you played gets set to your bench, and your bench only has 6 slots, I think it is. So if you either lose when you run out of cards in the battle, or you lose if you have to put a card on the bench and there's not a spot for it. So you could take a risk and have, like, say 7 unique cards, but then you're running the risk of filling up your bench too quickly, and then, like, if you had bad draws, you could end up exceeding the limit, and then you lose because of that. That actually happened to me in a game a while back. I had a really good setup, like, with the cards that I had. I haven't won a game yet. I've gotten 3rd place almost every single time. Like, been, like, just out of the final duel. Because the way it works is you go through 7 rounds, and whoever has the first and second most amount of fans go into the final battle to see who wins the whole thing. I've been just outside of that 2 times, or 2 or 3 times now, I think. One of them I was really annoyed because I kept just getting really unlucky draws. Like, I think I won the 6th and 7th round, and as you go, the rounds are worth more points. That's how I ended up in 3rd, because I won the last 2 rounds. But literally, like, every round before that, I literally lost by, like, 1 card. Like, if I would have survived for 1 more card, I would have won. And it was also, like, painful because I had what I believed to be a really good setup, but I just kept getting incredibly unlucky with my draws. Like, it was like, if I had drawn 1 card earlier because some of the cards boost your other cards. It's just interesting the amount of strategies that go into it. And the way it works is, it's extremely varied in how it's set up, because I think it's 5 different decks in the game. I really like the art on the cards as well. There's, like, the spooky set, the outer space set, the castle set, the, like, carnival type set, and I think there's one more that I'm not thinking of. There's the city set, but I think that's in there every time. I feel like there's one that I'm missing, but the way it works is you always take out one of the sets. So there's always one randomly selected that you will not be playing with. And that makes it incredibly varied, because the sets interact with each other in different ways depending on what sets are in the game and what aren't. And your strategy will change vastly depending on, like, the Necromancer, for example, is one of the best cards in the game, but it's only available if the spooky set happens to be in the game. So, well, it's more likely than not going to be in the game because only one's taken out. But if the spooky set happens to not be in the game, then you have to adapt your strategy and use different cards, because the Necromancer is no longer going to be appearing in the game. It's just interesting the amount of, like, vast like, it's such a simple game. It reminds me of Wingspan, but it's almost even more simple to learn than Wingspan, and I feel like I learn new strategies every time I play. Like it's almost like I pick up on something new every single time that I play, and it's been super fun. And this is what's gotten me into Board Game Arena a lot more, which we'll talk about later today. Because I don't have this game. I've been playing it on Board Game Arena. I'm probably going to buy it eventually because it's pretty cheap. It's like $35. That's pretty cheap as far as games go. And it seems really replayable. But the fact that I can just go on a game on Board Game Arena, easily match up with 8 people, and just have it all laid out for me, it works really well in the online format. And it's been super fun because I can just whip through games. Like, I played like 3 or 4 games last night. And again, it's just the amount of strategy, the way the cards interact with each other. And it's like, you can go in with a strategy, but it doesn't guarantee you a win, because the way it works is, I think it's either 6 or 5. The gameplay is for me, so I don't know exactly how many cards are set out. In between rounds, it's like 6 cards are laid down, and you can pick 2 of them. And you kind of have to see what you're given. You can redraw once. So if you don't get what you want, you can try to redraw one time to see if you happen to get a card that you're specifically looking for. But there's so many different cards, it's pretty unlikely. Like, it's likely that you'll be able to go in with at least a strategy and have it work, but you kind of have to adapt with what you're given, and that aspect is super fun to me. Like, it's like there's just enough cards to make it varied enough, but it doesn't feel like horribly random. Like, I lost my last game that I played last night. I never ran into a single Necromancer card, and that was what I was looking for to kind of complete my setup, and I just never got one. And I redraw it every time to try to get one, and it's like, that can just happen. Like, if you go in with a single strategy, it's not going to work. And it's just super interesting because there is an element of luck to it, because you have to get the right cards, but also if you play to what you're given, usually you can end up, like, you just have to have a pretty vast amount of knowledge, or like, if you have a vast amount of knowledge, it can get you really far in that game, and it just makes it super replayable, which is what I really like about it. And the fact that playing it online makes it way more replayable because it's so short to play over and over again. And it just keeps me engaged, like, the entire time. Like, I'm constantly, like, thinking about what strategies I need to be using and all of that stuff. I don't know. It's probably one of my favorite games just from my experience on Board Game Arena with it. But I always come out pretty high on games. Like, I don't know. I have so many now. It's like, I need to start getting a little more picky with them, because I have at least like 50, 60 games now. Plus, I have all of them that are available to me on Board Game Arena. I need to start being a little more picky with what I play, but I don't know. It's hard to rate because I come out of games really high. Like, every time I play a game that's at least moderately good, I'm like, oh, this is the best game ever made. But, like, Challengers is for sure probably in my top 10, top 5 right now, which is speaking from someone who is pretty casual and doesn't play a whole lot of games. But I'm guessing I'm going to get more experience now through Board Game Arena because I'll be able to play with more people. The issue for me, like, now is, like, the only people I really have to play with are my parents, and they aren't going to be as into the deeper end of strategy that you can do in games like Stone Age and stuff like that. So it's like, I'm not really challenged to try to beat them. I almost have to strategically try to make it close so that they want to play again. That's where the strategy comes in. Okay, that's about all that I have to say about that. What was my next topic again? Oh, learning multiple instruments. Take a drink of my water quick. So for those of you who don't know, I started on trombone in the prime age of pre-6th grade. Probably like 11, 12. Well, probably 12. I think I was 12. No, I was 11. I was 11 when I started on trombone. I still have the same trombone. And I played trombone strictly through all of middle school into high school, and then my senior year of high school, I decided to pick up baritone for the first time. That was the first alternate instrument that I played, and I will say right now, in my personal opinion, baritone is the easiest instrument to learn. Like, especially if you have prior brass experience. Like, I think that's probably why band directors switch people to baritone so often. Like, if trumpet isn't working out or if French horn isn't working out, just put them on baritone because it's easy. It has an easy embouchure, and trombone is also really easy to get a sound out, but the slide is something that you have to master. Like, it's a bit of a uh, learning curve to learn slide positions and know, like, be able to hear the pitches in your head. Trombone is so unique in that aspect. I would say baritone's the easiest instrument in the band to learn. But it is hard to learn like brass embouchure for the first time, but like especially coming from playing another brass instrument, you've got the prior experience. Baritone is not a hard instrument to learn. But anyways, the way that I learned baritone was pretty much equating it to slide positions on trombone because they're all the same. The only instrument that you can't do this for is French horn, because French horn is so unique in its tuning that you just need to learn that one pretty much by itself. And that one, I learned French horn was it junior year of college, and it was a bit of a learning curve because it threw me for a loop because the fingerings are not what I expected from someone who played brass instruments in the past. But baritone, trumpet, tuba, all the fingerings are the same, so if you're switching from one to the other, the only thing you have to consider is that trumpet tuning is different than baritone, tuba. They're same fingerings for the same pitch, but you have to consider that a C on trumpet is a B flat on tuba and baritone, so that's one thing to think about when you're making that switch or trying to make that connection. But for me, trombone, all of the slide positions equated to a certain finger combination. Like, for example, fourth position was 1 and 2, third position was 1, second position was 2, first position is open, fifth position 2 and 3, sixth position 1 and 3, seventh position all 3 valves. You can easily make that connection between those two instruments. And the same thing if you were switching from trombone to tuba. I'm just thinking about like someone who knows an instrument already who wants to learn another one. As you learn more instruments, it gets easier with every instrument that you learn. Like, I learned baritone first. I tried to learn trumpet when I was a freshman. When I was in 9th grade, I tried to learn trumpet. And it went fine, but I couldn't get very good tone on it because I wasn't the best at buzzing as it was on trombone, and my embouchure was not what it should have been, and it was kind of a failed experiment. Now I can play trumpet just fine, but yeah. I'm mainly speaking, from someone who has learned one instrument, how that enables you kind of to open your mind up to the world of instruments. Like, maybe you don't have the access to just go and grab a flute or whatever, but once you learn how to learn one instrument, it's pretty easy to apply it to others. It's just like getting the first sound on an instrument you're unfamiliar with is probably the first step. Like, trombone and baritone are literally pretty much the same. The mouthpiece is only a little bit bigger on baritone, so it's pretty comparable. Tuba, it took me a while, actually, surprisingly, to get that down, because I could not get my jaw dropped. It was such a unique sensation to buzz on tuba. I played tuba last year in marching band, and it took me a while to actually master getting that full sound on it, because you have to drop your jaw so much more than any other brass instrument. It's actually kind of insane, and it feels like your whole face is vibrating from it. But yeah, that took some training, I will say. But tuba, again, the first step, like I said, get the first sound, then you learn how to equate fingerings with what you already know. Tuba fingerings are the same as baritone, but an octave down, so it's really easy to learn that sort of thing. The issue on tuba, though, is the partials are so wide. incredibly difficult to get that embouchure, like, agility, like, be able to play fast phrases on tuba. But while we're talking about brass family, I'll just kind of go through it all. Trumpet is probably trumpet is easy once you get it down, but it's probably, well, no, it's not the hardest embouchure to, like, master, but once you get that, like, laser beam tone on trumpet, it's not hard to learn the fingerings on it, because again, it's the same as baritone and tuba, just in a new key. So you kind of have to adjust yourself and get used to. It's weird how I just can automatically do that now because I've gotten so used to it. The best way is just to play music on that instrument for a while, and then you just get adjusted to it. Like, now I just know. I used to play all my music on trumpet in the key of C instead of the key of B flat because I had issues transposing. But now that I'm used to it, from playing, I did all of those NES brass arrangements that ended up, I didn't really like how my mixing was on that, so I got rid of them. But playing that actually got me into the trumpet zone, and I'm much better at, like, just picking out fingerings even in the just normal key. But yeah, the issue with trumpet comes when you want to extend your range. Like, when you want to play high, it's hard to do that. Like, it's because trumpet is obviously going to be the highest that you play on a brass instrument, so it's hard to get that sensation without being too tight. But just basically learning the instrument, once you get the tone down, that's when I would say you can progress. And that goes for any instrument. Once you figure out how to get good tone, then it's just a matter of equating fingerings to everything else that you already know, and understanding how the instrument itself works. Like, before, when I learned trombone, I was just learning the slide positions because that's what it was. Now, the most recent instrument that I've kind of invested a bit of time in is flute. And flute, I'm more learning it based on the mechanics of the instrument, where it's like, the more fingers I have down, the lower the pitch is going to sound. And as I let up, the pitch is going to get higher. And I guess that helps transition us into woodwinds. I didn't really talk about horn. Horn is just so unique. It's the hardest brass instrument to learn because it probably has the hardest embouchure because it's different from everything else. And if you're playing on a French horn, and not a mellophone like marching, the mouthpiece is weird and it's hard to get, like, the real good center of the tone. And, like, mastering how you put your hand in there and all that jazz is a little bit more difficult than other brass instruments. And the fact that you can't equate, you have to just learn the fingerings kind of from scratch on that if you're coming from another instrument. All of the fingerings on horn are unique to the instrument. Like, you can't equate them to, like, another brass instrument, for example. Well, you could, because it's basically, one of my friends taught me this. I don't have a trigger on my trombone, but you can equate it to, like, having the trombone with the trigger down. Or maybe, like, if you have a baritone with fourth valve, maybe that. I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with those more advanced instruments. Or not really advanced, like instruments with the add-ons or whatever. I don't have a lot of experience with those. Okay, so transitioning into woodwinds. It's hard for me as a primary brass person to go into the woodwind world because I have literally, like, pretty much all of my life, like my instrument life, playing music, has been dedicated to brass. Which brass, you learn less fingerings, but you have to master the partials and learn how this whole sensation of moving up and down partials by using and playing different notes but using the same fingering. Whereas woodwinds, it's like you have to learn a whole slew of fingerings. And at first it seems really complicated to me. But then recently I've actually been doing a lot of planning for how I'm going to teach the 5th graders at the school that I'm working at in the fall. And it's like woodwind instruments aren't that hard once you get the hang of how they work. Like I was mentioning earlier with flute, it's like as I put more fingers down, the pitch is going to get lower. So I can easily just make a scale by going down fingers, raising them, and that sort of thing. There's a few like weird like pinky key shenanigans that happen on some of the accidentals, but in general, woodwind fingerings are not as hard to learn as I thought they would be. They seemed intimidating to me at first. Flute is unique embouchure wise just because you're blowing kind of across but also into the tone hole, and you don't have that with any other instrument. But once it's like it's just a matter like it's hard for someone who's never played an instrument before, but I'll say that as someone who's played them all now, it's not as hard as it seems. You just put the flute joint up to your mouth, like, and you just blow and you slowly rotate forward and back until you find that center of where the pitch will sound the best, and you just keep doing that until you get accustomed and you can just put the flute up and know exactly where it should go. And then, like I said, with brass instruments, it's just a matter of find where you can get the best sound first, and then start learning fingerings. And woodwinds, especially, the woodwinds will equate to each other as well. Like, there's many more different keys when it comes to woodwinds, because you have the flute that's in the key of C, the alto sax that's in the key of E flat, the tenor sax, which is in the key of B flat, then bari sax is in E flat, clarinet's in B flat, bass clarinet's still in B flat, oboes in C, bassoons in C. Am I missing any? Not really any major ones. There's the like E flat flute, or not E flat flute, the E flat clarinet and stuff like that. There's like those niche instruments, but not anything terribly important. You have to deal with a lot more of that in there, but like the reason that it's so easy to switch from alto sax to tenor sax is that it's the same fingerings, you just have to learn a new key and it's a different sensation to play, but you can equate them that way. And same with like going from clarinet to saxophone in general. It's a totally different sensation. It's a lot looser on the embouchure on sax than on clarinet, but because you already know the whole, like how you get the tone series on clarinet, it makes it much easier to learn saxophone having played clarinet previously. And really same thing with flute, because even if it's not the same fingerings for the same notes on, like, between the woodwind instruments, it's the same concept of as you go down the instrument, you're going to get lower sounds. It's just a matter of knowing and learning what's different from the instrument you're coming from. And I would argue, I haven't done a lot of switching back and forth on woodwinds, especially because I don't have access to them right now. But I would say that switching from like between reed instruments is similar to switching between like different brass instruments, where the embouchure is different, but it's not as exaggerated as one might think at first. Like, trumpet is definitely a tighter embouchure than trombone, and even more exaggerated than tuba. And it's probably similar switching from like clarinet to, say, bari sax. Like, it's that sort. It's still a decently minor difference, but it's still like it. You have to really drop your jaw a lot more and loosen up than compared to playing the clarinet. And like I said, as you learn more, like, secondary instrument is sort of when your brain gets picked and opened up. Like, I've played, well, in marching band in college, I played 3 different instruments. I played trombone, mellophone, and tuba. and that really got opened my eyes. And I played baritone in my senior year of high school's marching band. So it's like that kind of opened my eyes to really how easy it is. Like everyone always makes a big deal about like when they hear that someone plays like multiple instruments. It's like, all right, tell me how many instruments you play, and I list them all, and they're like amazed. But it's really like the instruments are more similar to each other than one might think. And it may seem intimidating to switch, but if you're into music, I would invite you to try it out. Like if you're in band in high school, even, I would recommend, if you are at all interested, your band director, if you maybe not, don't start it with, I want to switch to French horn right now. Just be like, do you have any extra French horns that I can practice on and see if I can get a handle on it? And especially if it's like something like French horn, where there's kind of a shortage of French horn players, I've noticed. They'll probably let you do it. And even if you're switching like from something that's needed to something that's not, like say you play bari sax, well, no one starts on bari sax. Say you play tuba or baritone and you want to play trumpet, they're probably not going to let you switch fully, but maybe they have an instrument available for you to rent if you're interested in just trying it out. Especially if you have a jazz band and you're a clarinet or flute player, it seems really intimidating to learn like tenor or alto sax to be in jazz band, specifically because some schools do it where anyone can be in jazz band, but really a lot of schools will use this typical 2 altos, 2 tenors, a bari, and then your brass sections, and they won't let you go into the jazz band and play flute or clarinet. But I would invite you to at least show interest to your director, or ask about it, ask if you can work on alto stuff in your lessons, that sort of thing, because I'm sure they'd be willing and able. And if you have any further questions for me, be sure to pick my brain and ask me in the comments. This is something that I am really passionate about. I think people should, like, obviously just music in general, but I think it seems way more intimidating than it should be to switch instruments or learn multiple even. Like, because I learned baritone, I feel like I'm a better trombone player because of it, because I have that experience on baritone. But I could talk about this topic for like an hour, so I suppose it's about time to move on. So, next, kind of the special segment, which is still just me talking. I need to get a guest on or something. Patrick wanted to come on, talk about Mountain Dew flavors. I might have to have him on in an episode. But, online board gaming versus in person. I think both have its advantages, but I personally do prefer in person for mainly the social aspect. You don't get that with online board gaming. I'm the same way with like online video games even too. Like, call me a boomer, but I like playing local co-op way more than I enjoy playing online. Like, granted, you make more online friends and stuff like that, and that sort of thing is cool. Like, being able to play across like state lines is super cool in like gaming, and a lot of games are made with that in mind. But like board games, it's really just like you make a lot more memories, I would say, like playing a board game in person, because it's like you get to see everyone's reactions. Maybe people make like comments or stuff about like cool moments and stuff like that. Like, I had an insane play when I played Challengers the other day, and it's just like I got to pog over it, but no one else really. It's like, it's not like the chat was blowing up or anything like that. No one cared. You just don't get that with the online aspect. But at the same time, when it comes to learning games and discovering new games, online gaming streamlines it so much, because almost all of the games on Board Game Arena have built-in tutorials that people have made, which is super awesome, because I'm someone who gets lost in directions a lot. I've gotten better at it now that I've played more games. I understand the whole like victory points thing, and like I understand the terminology a lot more now, where it seems like a lot of games don't explain a lot of that stuff, and it's just like if you've played previous games of this genre, you'll understand, and it's like, well, shit, I haven't. So, good luck. But I more have to do it and learn it as I go, which it's super nice that they have the tutorials that help you with that and help you sort of learn how things work. And the fact that you really can learn a lot just by playing games for the first time against randos online. Like, it's like they pair you with similar ELOs, so if you're playing a game for the first time and you're 0 ELO, you're not going to get paired with someone who's been playing this game like forever and has a perfect record on it or something. So, although I will say I got my ass handed to me by someone on Stone Age on there a while ago, and that's a game I thought I knew how to play. But again, it's like I was playing against my parents, so it's like I wasn't being heavily challenged in the point department. But yeah, I will say, like, the ease of use of Board Game Arena is something that can't be sneezed at. Like, it's really great to have like games that take forever to set up and tear down. Like, the setup and tear down is probably like 30 minutes on some games, or more. So just being able to click play and find a room and then you're good to go is super, super nice. And the way that they've streamlined that is amazing. And the ability to, as someone who is still looking for more people who play games the way that I do, being able to just find like-minded people and people who know what they're doing in the games and actually challenge me to try. It's super cool that there's that community out there, and I can just find that by going on the website and clicking a play button. So there's definitely big, like, major advantages and disadvantages to each. You miss a lot of the social aspect, and it's like playing like a board game online. It's like I'm not gonna find that nearly as memorable as playing it in person with friends. Like, I realize you can play it online with friends too, but like the in-person, like, tactile experience is more tangible than playing it online with a few random people, maybe friends, but usually random people, at least for me right now. I'm trying to get more people to join, but we'll see how that goes. And the fact that I can easily try games for the first time that I may be slightly interested in but haven't played. I realize the experience won't be quite the same as like a regular game, but, or like playing it in person. But shoot, I totally lost my train of thought. I totally don't. I was just rambling and forgot completely where I was going with that point. But the other aspect is how fast-paced the games become, because it's not like you're sitting there waiting for someone to take their turn for an eternity or something like that, where it's like I feel like that's where half of the extended gameplay time on some games comes from, is where people take way too long on their turns, like in person. And it's not nearly as streamlined as it is online, where it's just like click where I want my person to go or whatever, or easily just mash a button to lay down cards in the case of Challenger. But part of that streamlined experience, I think, takes away from it a little bit, because it doesn't feel quite as thought-provoking as playing the game in person might. But it's still comparable. Like, it's a great alternative, even if it might not be my primary, like, what I like primarily. But yeah, the shorter game times is also super nice, because like a game of Stone Age might take like an hour or like an hour and a half in person, whereas I can knock one out in like 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the player count on Board Game Arena. So I can just play more content, and it just helps me practice too, and like understand the rules a little better, because it's like when I'm playing online, it's not going to let me do something that I'm not allowed to do in the game. So I don't have to worry about monitoring the rules while I'm playing, because usually that's kind of my role in the games, is almost the overseer to make sure someone doesn't accidentally break the rules or everyone understands everything and all that jazz, where I don't have to do any of that in Board Game Arena. I can just click on a game, play it, and it's quick and easy. But like I said, it's almost two completely different experiences. Like, a lot of people like argue that board game, like playing games online, is like a lesser experience, and maybe it is slightly. Like I said, it takes away the social element, but honestly, it's just different. I don't think it's better or worse necessarily. You get a lot more content because you can just play games repeatedly a lot easier, because you don't have to worry about setup and teardown for one, and it's just streamlined for fast gameplay online as well, so it doesn't take nearly as long to complete a game as it would in person. And I find that it helps me understand the rules a lot better. That's the advantages of the online aspect. But I really have a soft spot for owning the physical equipment and having all of the little pieces and stuff like that, and being able to gather with people in person when they're actually nearby and I can actually bring it in and play games with them. But yeah, like I said, I really don't think there's a strong argument for one being better than the other. I think there's arguments for both, and in that vein, I think they're just two different worlds. Like, you'll get a different experience playing it online than you will in person, but I don't think it's necessarily better or worse in that regard. I don't know. I feel like I'm repeating topics now, and repeating arguments, so I'm going to move on from that topic now. Take a drink of water, and now talk Pikmin. So, like I said, Pikmin 4, I have not completed all the way through 100%. I am almost done. I am 38% finished with the final area, but I haven't completed any of the caves there yet. I am close, but not quite there. And I'll probably talk about it more at length in a later episode when I've fully beaten it. Because right now my opinion on it isn't as strong and convicted as it will be when I've gotten the full experience. But first, obviously, Hey Pikmin is last. I barely played that game. I played it a good amount. I've heard it gets better as you get like later in the game, but it takes a while to get to that point where it actually has pretty good gameplay. It was an interesting idea that kind of happened in the same vein as the Chibi-Robo Ziplash, like turning a beloved GameCube franchise into like a spin-off 2D platformer thing. Like, it was more of an experiment than anything, and I don't agree with it. I think you should just make your own idea. It was interesting using like Pikmin in like a 2D platformer sort of style, like having puzzles that were like 2D instead of the whole 3D thing, like exploration that's in the regular games. But as a Pikmin game, it's not good, and it suffers from the same thing Nuts and Bolts does. I haven't played enough Hey Pikmin to know if it's really that good of a game or not, but it's by far the worst Pikmin game. And like, maybe it is a good 2D platformer, maybe it's a halfway decent 2D platformer that's pretty innovative. Like I said, it's like having the Pikmin in a 2D space is an interesting idea, but it's not Pikmin. Like, it's not the same type of theming that really goes into the rest of the series. And same with the whole Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts not being a 3D platformer like the other two. It was a racing game almost with like the creative building engine, and it really was a really fun game, but it did not feel like I was playing a Banjo game most of the time. Okay, then fourth, it's hard for me to say, but I think like the bottom two regular Pikmin games and the top two Pikmin games for me are extremely comparable, and they're all really top tier games. Like, you'll see my top 50 games of all time list, and they're in there. They're all in there and relatively close to each other. But I think I have to rank Pikmin 3 at the lowest of the main Pikmin games, just because it is so incredibly bite-sized and unnecessarily so. It could have been a lot more than it was, especially considering when it was released. It was released when people were starved for Pikmin content, kind of like Pikmin 4. It was released like 10 years after Pikmin 2 had been dropped, and it's a really good game. It's really fun. And I've said my complaints with it before. It's too easy by far. Like, I will never have any issues with that game. It was kind of like a Nintendo-fied, like, of that era. Like, that era of games just was, in general, like, first-party Nintendo games in general were, like, really easy. Like, baby game type stuff, like 3D World and New Super Mario Bros. U. Like, all those games were really incredibly easy. And it was just kind of a thing of that era. It's a beautiful game, too. And it's easy, but it's fun. And it does have that Pikmin charm about it, which is why it's, like, still high on my, like, games of all time list. Because I do love it, and it feels like Pikmin. And I really like the theming and the way that they implemented the day limit. You will never get a game over in that game because it is so easy to get juice and just survive in that game. There's an overabundance of it. But I do like that they implemented the day limit that way. But yeah, Pikmin 3 is probably my least favorite. It's hard to say, though, because the AI in that game is so streamlined and so clean. It's really good. And mission mode is so replayable. It is, and Bingo Battle too. That game still to this day has the best side content of any Pikmin game. Any of them, including Pikmin 4. We'll talk about Dendori battles later, but they aren't nearly as replayable to me as the mission mode battles in 3, which is why I'm hoping that we get DLC for 4, but that's a talk for later. Because originally Pikmin 3 only had I think it was 5 regular, like 5 collect fruit, 5 defeat enemies, and then all the bosses. And that was fine, but then they added, like, they tripled the amount of side content in the game with DLC, and they're all really solid stages, and they're super fun to play, and it feels super rewarding to get platinum on them. Like, once you figure it out, they're not that hard to platinum, but some of them, it takes a while, like, especially if you're trying to do it yourself without looking up guides online, it can be kind of hard to figure out a route yourself to get platinum on some of them. And the co-op in that game was super fun, too. Like, they brought that back from Pikmin 2, where you could play co-op in challenge mode. And it just brought new strategies to the table to be able to play with a separate person, or a second person, in the challenge or mission mode. And it was super fun. And then they added the 2-player mode in story mode, which obviously wasn't thought out a whole lot. It was just kind of an add-on to be like, hey, you can play multiplayer in the main story of Pikmin 3 now in the deluxe version. And honestly, it worked really well. It made the game a lot easier because you could multitask so much better. But I don't think that's a bad thing. The game was already easy as it was. I think it was super, super great that they implemented that. One of the major issues I have with it is I hate the end game of Pikmin 3. Like, one of my major complaints is I hate the Formidable Oak with a burning passion. I like the idea of a labyrinth where you are required to use every color of Pikmin. I don't know what about it. I don't like, but I hate it gameplay. I think it's just because it's so slow. Like, it takes, when you don't use like the glitch to skip a lot of it, it takes so long, and it's like, it doesn't take an incredibly long amount of time. Like, obviously you can probably do it in an in-game day and have time to beat the Plasma Wraith after, even if you do it the normal way. But it's just such slow gameplay of you like going through there trying to make sure you have Brittany taking having Olimar follow you and all that stuff. It's just, I don't like that part of the game whatsoever. The final boss is fine. I think it's probably, I haven't beaten the final, well, no, it's not my favorite. It's my second favorite right now, not having beaten the final boss in Pikmin 4 yet. I don't even know what it is. I've managed to avoid spoilers on that. We'll see. But I like the Plasma Wraith as a boss, but I hate the Formidable Oak area labyrinth thing with a burning passion. It's my least favorite, like, Pikmin gameplay in the entire series. Well, like, in the main series. I don't know about Hey Pikmin or whatnot, but it's my least favorite part gameplay-wise of the entire series so far, is that Formidable Oak crap. I also don't like how late you get blue Pikmin in that game either. It's kind of like a side note thing. I don't mind that purple and white Pikmin were delegated to mission mode stages. I think that's fine. It didn't bother me that much. I'm just glad they were in the game at any capacity. It's obvious that they didn't really think it was necessary to have them in the story there and put the spotlight more on wings and rocks, which I liked. But blue Pikmin in the main story, you get them so incredibly late. It's my favorite Pikmin type, but so maybe I'm biased, but you get it pretty much at the very end of the game. You use them to get to one boss, and if you're 100%ing it, there's a good amount of fruit. There's like probably 2 to 3 per area that requires blue Pikmin, and you have to go back to them for that. It's like, it just felt like they were almost an afterthought. Like, it felt like they didn't really know how to use them with the wing Pikmin being able to fly above the water anyways. Like, it felt like they didn't get implemented enough in the game, which maybe is a small complaint, but I don't know. But that's Pikmin 3. It's super replayable as well because it's so short, and it's super satisfying to beat it in low day counts, just like the first game, which I'll talk about in a second. I don't know. It's hard because Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 1 are almost comparable to me, which we'll transition into Pikmin 1 now. I don't have that much more to say about Pikmin 3. Pikmin 1 is well known for having really bad Pikmin AI, and that almost plays into its difficulty because you have to deal with almost the randomness of it, because it feels random, like Pikmin will just randomly not listen to you and whatnot in that game. But I don't know, it just nails the theme of what Pikmin should be perfectly. Like, you're isolated on this alien planet. The only friendly life that you have around you are the Pikmin, and it just nails that sort of isolated feel of it perfectly. And like, the exploration in that game is top tier. And the fact that it really used all of the colors well. Like, people will say yellow's got the shaft in that game, and they kind of did. But being the only Pikmin that can carry bomb rocks, they at least had some purpose. You didn't need a lot of them, but it's kind of similar to the white Pikmin in Pikmin 2, where you don't need a lot of them to have them fulfill their purpose, but they are utilized a good amount because you need them to blow up the rock walls, you need them for the final boss, you need them for a select few treasures because of their ability to be thrown high. I still remember as a kid trying to get the repair type bolt by carrying like 5 yellow Pikmin across that small bridge at a time and throwing them up there and then switching them out with blues when they finally got the part down. I didn't realize until I watched someone play it on YouTube that you could just throw blue Pikmin up the side. And that was just, like, I don't know. I have so many memories of playing Pikmin 1. It's a nostalgia game for me. It's probably my most nostalgic game, even more so than Pikmin 2. just because of the amount of times that I've replayed it and beaten it. Because that Pikmin 1 also nails the replayability down, because it's easy to lower your day count as you go. Like, probably when I was a kid, I probably beat the game in probably like 25, 28 days, and like being able to slowly work it down into the teens, and then now being able to beat it in 9 days decently consistently. It's just super satisfying to learn the ropes and be able to get your time even faster on that game. It's just perfect for that sort of thing. And it's just a super well-rounded, well-balanced game. Like I said, a lot of the difficulty comes from stupid like jankiness, like Pikmin AI, the crushing glitch, all of that type of stuff kind of makes it a little bit annoying to replay now that you're kind of used to the nearly perfect AI in Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 4. But I don't know, it still is a game that holds up really pretty well today. And like, people complain that it's too short, but it's not an easy game like Pikmin 3 is. Pikmin 1 is definitely way harder, and if you're playing it for your first time, it'll take you a good amount of time to beat it. Although, with the day limit, like, you consider that a day is like 13-ish minutes or something like that. 13 times 30 is what? 39, carry a 0, 390 minutes. You're looking at most like a probably 7-hour experience. So it really, like, thinking about boiling it down that way, it's not that long, but I think its like limit really helps with its replayability. It's probably the most replayable Pikmin game. Maybe more modern gamers will say 3 is more replayable, but I don't know. To me, it's 1. Then for now, moving on to second place. Again, it's Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 1 kind of put against each other, because they're similar in the fact that they're more bite-sized but more replayable games than the other two, but I don't know that I like that as much. The second game, for now, is Pikmin 4, and that's mainly because I cannot confidently say it's better than Pikmin 2. I don't have too much to say about it right now. It nails the difficulty perfectly. It's basically perfect, and that's exactly what my problem is with it. It's basically perfect. There are so many small things that really bother me in that game. The auto lock is one of them. Like, I don't understand why it was necessary to add an auto lock when the aiming system in Pikmin 3 was perfect. Like, they could have just kept that and it would have been perfectly fine. Everything else controls super well, but when I'm trying to attack 2 enemies at once and I can only target one of them because the stupid auto lock won't, like, move off of it, it is so annoying. Like, I don't understand why they thought that was a good idea. I hope they see enough complaints that maybe if they add a DLC update, they will make it, like, at least possible to turn off. But maybe they built the entire game with that in mind. Part of the reason I think that is, I've mentioned this on stream before, there are treasures that, quote, require the yellow Pikmin, but you can totally get like any color Pikmin up there. The only reason you can't is the auto lock won't lock onto the treasure, so you have to throw yellow, unless you have yellow Pikmin in your hand. It will only target the treasure if you have yellow Pikmin. That's part of the reason why I think the auto lock was put in there. It was to artificially require yellow Pikmin for certain treasures, which I really don't like. Because you can still get those treasures with other colors of Pikmin, like the specific ones that I'm thinking of. You can... Because I've seen some, like, speedrunners who have, like, found out a way to, like, stand the perfect distance away and aim the cursor slightly, like, to the left or right of the treasure, so they can throw their Pikmin up there anyways, and they'll still grab the treasure. it just makes it more annoying because they're trying to lock stuff behind yellow Pikmin artificially by making you auto lock onto it only when you have yellow Pikmin in your hand, and otherwise it'll make it really difficult to aim at it. That's why I don't think they'll take away the auto lock. That's the main reason why I even like if they add it like thought about taking it away later. I don't think they will. But it would be nice because even in Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, they just randomly added that update that added like the touch controls. Like so it's not like it's past them to add just a totally new control scheme years down the line. And like I said, I'm hoping they add more like Dandori, like a challenge mode. Like I realize you can play all the Dandori battles in the game by going to the like hub area and talking to the one guy. But I just want there to be more challenges because the late game ones are pretty challenging, but almost all of them I platinumed on the first try, and most of them are not that big. Like most of them are 7 minutes or under, if not all of them. Like some of the collect treasure games or mission mode stages in Pikmin 3 were like 15-20 minutes long. So it's like I want something a bit bigger like that because that I really enjoyed the larger scale mission mode stages. Those were my favorite ones in Pikmin 3. I'm hoping they add something like that later down the line. Maybe they won't, but I don't know. And maybe even like night mission challenge mode stuff too. That would be super cool. Because some of it's like some of these later game ones I'm struggling with, but I lost for the first time on I had never lost a night mission until doing one in the second to last area. That was the first time I've ever lost one, and the only time to date. I haven't done a couple. There are a couple of them that I haven't done yet, but so far those have also been like kind of a joke. Like they're fun and I really like them. I just wish there was maybe like an expert difficulty, like a couple stages you unlock after the post game, because I'm pretty sure there's not. I haven't beaten the game yet, but I haven't heard anything on that. Again, like I said, there's so many things that I love about the game. The caves are so well designed. Like I do like the randomly generated caves in Pikmin 2. And at first I was worried this wouldn't be as fun because they aren't randomly generated. But the way that they designed them and them being a lot more puzzle oriented, and like puzzles you legitimately kind of have to figure out how to get through rather than just randomly throwing a bunch of stuff down and you have to figure out how to clear out all the enemies. I like that a lot. Like, I won't say I like it more or less than Pikmin 2's way of doing it, but I like it a lot, and I really like the implementation of that. I also really like the enemy variety. There's so many enemies that returned in Pikmin 3 or Pikmin 4 that were absent in Pikmin 2 or Pikmin 3. There were so many enemies present in Pikmin 4 that were kind of thrown out in Pikmin 3. And I really like that. And then there's so many new enemies as well. Like, and the way that they use the elements, I'm just thinking of all the different kinds of Bulborbs that you have to go through, like the poison ones, the ice ones. That's kind of it. But like they used the elements a lot more in Pikmin 4 than they ever have before, and it made every Pikmin feel worthwhile, except kind of the winged Pikmin. The winged Pikmin kind of got the shaft a bit. But not to the extent that the blue Pikmin did in Pikmin 3. I felt like winged Pikmin were used a decent amount, and I've heard that they're used a lot more in the last area and maybe a few more caves in there, and I haven't completed that area fully yet. So back to things that I don't like. The auto lock I talked about, the lack of challenge in the side modes, like the Dandori challenges and the night missions. I want like some expert difficulty like DLC stages, like some that are longer and harder. Don't take that out of context. I just want I want longer Dandori challenges that are more vast, and I want night missions that just throw crazy stuff at you. I know they kind of do that a bit towards the end of the game, but there's like 2 missions that are like kind of challenging. And like I said, all of the Dendori challenges except like the last one in the story and the sage one. The sage ones are pretty good difficulty wise, I will say. Like that whole gauntlet that you have to go through with the Dendori sage. Those ones were really good difficulty wise. But all of them in the main story I platinumed first try. Well, some of them I had to restart because I messed up, but I had like no issue platinuming them once I got it down and knew where everything was. Except for like the last one. That one gave me a little bit of an issue. But again, that's the last mission in the game. It should be hard. What else? There's other things that bother me. Like, shoot. Dang it. I had it in my head, and now it is totally gone. There's other, like, really small things that really bother me in the game, and I can't remember what they are. Ochi is not nearly as much of an issue as I thought he'd be. I thought he was going to be totally overpowered, and he kind of is, but the game feels built around that. So it's not like he's, like, absolutely insane. Like, I thought, especially with the ability to, like, have your Pikmin on him and charge into stuff and have them fall, like, launch onto the enemy, I thought almost every enemy in the game was going to be a joke because of that. But that's not necessarily the case. I've had issues with a few enemies. There are some, like the man at legs, where you can literally just put your Pikmin on and run away from the bullets, and it really streamlines that fight and makes it, like, impossible to lose. But in general, I don't think Ochi totally breaks the game or anything like I was kind of worried about when I first saw, like, the trailers and such. Um, I kind of wish the items were. This is more of a personal preference, but I kind of wish the gear upgrades were still discoverable in caves instead of you having to pay for them with raw materials. But that's just a preference. It made the bosses feel a little more special to me in Pikmin 2, where you beat a boss and then you got like some sort of upgrade from them. And it was clever how they made the upgrades like relate to the treasure they dropped, whereas now it's just the bosses drop random bits of treasure. Um, yeah, I don't know. I that's just a personal preference though. I'm trying to think because there is something else that I didn't wasn't a fan of in Pikmin 4, but now I can't remember for the life of me what it is. I don't think it's nearly as replayable as even Pikmin 2, just because of the vast amount of content in it. Maybe when I start seeing speedruns pop up of it, I'll change my mind on that and I'll see that it's actually possible to beat it fast. But like with the night missions and Olimar's shipwreck tale and all of the Dendori battles and the areas being I don't mind the areas being as big as they are. It's mainly the night missions that I think will really slow down like replays of the game. I don't know. I think it's fine, but we'll see. I don't. My opinion on that might change as time goes on because I haven't seen the game beat like really super fast yet. But like especially going back and doing 100% again, like it used to be like Pikmin 2, even though it took a while to 100% for sure, it still felt replayable to me. Oh, that's what it was. Just that the game is long, and I know 2 also didn't have a day limit, but I don't know, I still felt like pressed for time in 2, whereas, and maybe this is a personal thing, maybe other people don't agree, but Pikmin 4, it feels like the day counter is more of an accessory than anything, especially the fact that the night missions count towards your day total, which thematically it makes sense. You're going there at night, and yeah, it counts. It makes sense that that would count as a day. But it feels like the day count is totally just thrown out the window, and it's just an accessory in uh 4, because it totally kind of breaks what made the other games so fun to replay. Like, especially like 100%, trying to 100%, like Pikmin 2 even still, in like as few of a day count as possible, like trying to navigate between caves because the caves pause time, and trying to time when you would go in the caves so that you would be able to beat it in the least amount of in-game days possible. It feels like that aspect is just thrown completely out of the window in Pikmin 4, where the day counter, like I said, seems more like an accessory, like it's just there because it's been there for the other games, because it counts the night missions, and that's the main thing that bothers me a little bit. Like I said, I understand thematically why they count, but the fact that your 100% run is automatically going to be like, I don't know how many night missions there are in the game. There might be like, I don't know, 15 or something like that. Roughly like 12 to 15 night missions in the game. You're automatically going to have those 15 days added to your final total because of the night missions. It just doesn't feel quite as satisfying when it's like, I can beat Pikmin 1 in 9 days, Pikmin 2 in like, I think it's like less than 10. I think you can beat Pikmin 2 in less than 10 days. I'm not sure on that one. I don't remember the minimum day counts for the... Well, Pikmin 1, the minimum day count is 6. But you know what I mean. Like, doable-wise. I don't know. That's one thing that really bothers me. And maybe it doesn't bother anyone else. But it doesn't feel quite as replayable because of specifically the night missions. I think everything else is fine. Like, thinking about it now more in depth, I think everything else is fine. Like, the areas are bigger than normal, yes, but they're still beatable in probably, like, 1 to 2 days, even though time in the caves still passes. Which, honestly, I really like. I really like that, like, they thought of that, because it just felt like you could dilly-dally in the caves and kind of threw out the point of Pikmin, which is to, well, the point of Pikmin isn't necessarily to go fast, but it's like you're doing stuff in a limited time, and then all of a sudden you go in the caves in Pikmin 2 and your time limit's thrown out the window. I do like that they added us, like, they made it so time just passes really slow in the caves. But like, the main areas I think are probably doable in 2 days ish, maybe even less. It's the night missions that kind of ruin it. And it's not that I don't like them. It's just that they kind of ruin the replayability of 100% at least. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But then I've been rambling about Pikmin 4 for so long. You know what's at the top. It's Pikmin 2. And recently, there has been a surge of people who shit on this game. And I get why. People have legitimate complaints, like, and maybe I'll make a segment later where I completely refute all of those complaints with my opinions on them that are obviously better than anyone else's. But I've just seen, like, it's almost become, like, I wouldn't say it's an unpopular opinion to like Pikmin 1 or Pikmin 2 the most. I would say that a very vocal minority has come out and hated on Pikmin 2. I don't think it's the majority that hates it, but I think it's a very vocal group of people. Like, if I go on, like, I watched someone's, like, just some random popped up in my recommendations, their Pikmin game list, which is actually where I got the idea to do this. And he put Pikmin 2 as his favorite game and said that it never will be beaten and it's, like, untouchable, which maybe that's not the case, but like people were like destroying him in the comments, like with paragraphs upon paragraphs of like explanations why Pikmin 2 sucks or whatever. And I understand why people don't like it, but maybe it's because I grew up with it, and like that was my Pikmin game, because Pikmin 1 released when I was 1 year old. So it's like I wasn't going to grow up with that one. I grew up playing Pikmin 2 more than I did playing Pikmin 1. I have more memories playing Pikmin 2 specifically. Like I said, I've beaten Pikmin 1 more times than I've beaten Pikmin 2. But I have more nostalgia for Pikmin 2 because I've just played it more. I haven't necessarily beaten it every time. I think it has the best post-game in the series, just because it's so fleshed out. Pikmin 4 also has a very fleshed out post-game, but I'm not through it all the way yet, which is also why I am holding off on my definitive opinions. Pikmin 4 might pass Pikmin 2, but it remains to be seen. Like I said, those small things that bother me might set it back. But people don't like the stupid difficulty of Pikmin 2. I love it. I think it's really funny. And obviously it can get harder because there's Pikmin 2 Kaizo and Pikmin games that have had higher difficulty, like Lands of Torture. Like, it's possible to make a game more and more, like, more unfair than Pikmin 2. And there are just regular games that are harder than Pikmin 2. Like, it's not like it's Dark Souls or something like that. And maybe I can see people's argument where, like, kind of similar to my issues with Pikmin 4, where it feels like not Pikmin because it doesn't have a time limit, and because you go in the caves and you suddenly don't, like, time doesn't pass suddenly. It feels a little thematically different than Pikmin 1, where it's like you're trying to survive and you have a limited time to get out of there, where now it's almost like, oh, I can just dilly-dally and do whatever I want. Like, it's like, oh, I just lost 100 reds to the segmented cropster. Might as well grow 200 more. I've got as many days as I want to do it. That's one reason why I don't think the difficulty is as unfair as people act like. Like, sure, there are hard caves, but any Pikmin you lose can easily be replaced. And you can argue that, yeah, that's time, but really, if you play pretty perfectly, the game isn't that long. Like, people act like it's a crazy long game. It's not that long. It's not really that long of a game. There's 4 areas, each with, well, 2 of them have 3 caves, 2 of them have 4. There's 201 treasures to collect. It's not that big of a game. And again, the difficulty starts to ramp up in the second half after the post game when you repay the debt. Depending on what caves you go in, if you're playing blind, you might go in the Water Wraith cave before you pay off the debt because you don't know that there's not anything worth it in there other than the Pluckaphone. But most of the time, like, general players will probably encounter the hardest caves last, because the hardest caves are pretty much all in the Wistful Wild. I would argue Subterranean Complex in Valley of Repose and Submerged Castle are on par with those and maybe even exceed, like, Cavern of Chaos. But sure, Pikmin 2 has a crazy amount of, like, maybe BS traps that just fall from the sky in the caves. But I think the fact that, for one, you can reset any sub-level if you lose a crap ton of Pikmin and just approach it differently. And you can just scout the traps out. Like, people act like it's a big deal that a Bulborb gets dropped on your head. In most situations, it's either going to be a tiny Bulborb, like a baby, or if it's a big one, in the case of there's a Cavern of Chaos sub-level that I'm thinking of where a Bulbear drops on your head, you can walk around carrying 1 Pikmin. Maybe, like, yeah, new players won't know this, but you can walk around carrying 1 Pikmin, it drops from the sky, and you can lead it off the cliff, and it just dies, and you get the treasure. It's... I don't know. I don't think the traps are as big of a deal as people make it out to be. The bomb rocks give you enough time to react. Like, you kind of have to react as soon as you see it. As soon as you see the bomb rock fall, you kind of have to whistle your Pikmin and get them out of there. The volatile Dweevils are a little more dangerous because they'll follow you a little ways. But as long as you don't have leaf purples, most Pikmin will be able to get away. And again, you can reset any floor and replay it now that you know that's a thing, and you can approach it a little differently. Maybe throw one Pikmin in to dig up the treasure and then whistle it when you know the bomb rock's gonna fall. I really don't think Pikmin 2 is nearly as punishing as people act like. Because they countered the extreme difficulty difference from Pikmin 1 by making the day limit unlimited and giving you ample opportunity to either get sprays, because the sprays are kind of broken in that game and people don't take that into account, it seems, either. You can freeze bombs. You can bitter spray a bomb and it won't go off. Like, sure, you can do that. That's easy. I just feel like the people who are crapping on the game are people who, I don't use this word unironically a lot, but they're casuals. Like people who played the game once, had a bad time and quit, or maybe beat it but still had a bad time with it because they didn't ever learn the game knowledge really required to kind of have a good time with it. And maybe you could argue they shouldn't have to do that much research to figure out how to avoid the traps. But I feel like it's enough that you can reset any sub-level and just go back to the beginning and try it again. It's the exact same as the rewind. It works the same as the rewind in Pikmin 4, where you can rewind a sub-level and start from the beginning again if you lose a bunch of Pikmin. It's the same exact thing, but it's just you reset the console instead. I remember I used to do that all the time, and I beat this game when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So, and again, maybe it's my nostalgia talking, but it's an incredibly fun game. That's, again, because the floors are randomly generated, that adds to its replayability as well, because you won't run into the same... You can run into the same sub-level layout twice, obviously. But it's like, it's so fresh every time, and it's long enough to where it's not like I'm going to remember, oh, I got that snaggered whole sub-level 2 layout again. Dang it, I better reset so I get a different one. Like, it's not like I'm going to remember that specifically. It's just a super enjoyable game, and Pikmin AI was streamlined heavily in Pikmin 2. I would say it's really not that much of an issue. Like, sure, it's like in Pikmin 3, it's like extremely forgiving, where Pikmin won't even like go near the water if they're gonna, like, if they're not blues. Like, they'll step away from it, and they'll automatically narrow to get through bridges, where they don't do that nearly as well in Pikmin 2. Like, those sort of small things are better in Pikmin 3 and on. But really, it was a vast improvement over Pikmin 1. Like, the Pikmin just behave so much better. Sure, maybe one stray Pikmin will go and hit a bomb rock on his own, but again, that's why you go through the sub-level on your own and punch all the bomb rocks. It may be tedious, but if you're afraid of that happening, then just do that. It's not like it's that hard. But yeah, for now, Pikmin 2 is my favorite game. Pikmin 4, I would say, is comparable. And again, I can't really form a exact opinion because I haven't completely beaten Pikmin 4 yet. Also, the Titan Dweevil so far is the best final boss in the series. I'm putting that out there. I love how it doesn't require you to use all the colors, but it uses all the elements in a super cool way. Like, the fact that it has, like, treasures that are emitters of each element in the game is super cool. Maybe purples aren't required, but purples are able to curb stomp everything else in the game, so might as well make them pretty much useless in the final boss battle. Sure, you can go in with the yellows and do it if you know what you're doing, but you're putting them in danger a little bit to the other elements when you do that, so that's more of a, I don't know, a person who's played the game a fair bit, like, sort of play, I would say. But yeah, I don't know if Pikmin 4 will pass Pikmin 2 when I beat it, I don't know if there'll be DLC for Pikmin 4 that will help it pass it. If there is a solid challenge mode added to Pikmin 4, that might give it the edge it needs. But I don't know. The auto lock thing and the night missions making it not replayable, or not as replayable to me personally, really kind of lower it for me. I don't know. We'll see. But that's going to end it. We're like right at an hour and 30 minutes, which is the threshold that I don't want to go beyond on these. So I'm going to wrap this episode up now. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any lovely comments to roast me on my opinions on Pikmin, leave them below. But I'll see you all next week for the next episode. Peace out. I hope you all have a good one.